There's a lot of misconception out there that there are what's known as micro movements or micro responses that tell you whether someone is lying or not. You can't count on those micro gestures. You can't count on being able to apply one rule to all people, especially not one rule to all populations or all ethnicities or all cultures, because every culture is different. In Japan, for example, they don't make eye contact. They look down because that's a sign of respect. So if you try to apply the idea that micro gestures in the United States apply to Japanese people, you're going to think everyone's lying to you, when in fact they're just trying to be respectful, right? So I do not, and I was not taught to accept these micro movements of the face as a form of detecting lies or a fabrication. Instead, what we're taught is to use actual communication skills to determine whether someone is lying to you or not. So, for example, if you're talking to somebody that you know very well, let's say it's a brother or a spouse or a coworker, somebody that you have what's known as a baseline about. Baseline means that you've been with this person through many different varieties of emotion, of stress, of time of day, et cetera, et cetera. So you know, in a nutshell, you know what's normal, and then you know what's not normal. When you have a baseline, the way that you can tell whether somebody's lying to you or not is by measuring the variance between how they respond to your question or how they respond in the moment against that baseline. So if you see someone speaking to you and they seem more anxious, if you see someone speaking to you and they seem calmer, if they have a greater variance from the baseline of what you're normally seeing from them, then you know that there's a higher likelihood that you're not getting the complete truth, because their variance from the baseline is significant. When you're talking to somebody who is a complete stranger, you have no baseline when they're a complete stranger. So you can't count on variance from baseline as your tool. Instead, what you have to use is the actual physical words that are coming out of their mouth. So when someone is talking to you and they're a stranger and you want to determine whether or not they're being truthful or not, you have to lean on a set of skills called elicitation. Elicitation is a much more comprehensive set of skills than we can talk about in one interview. But what I will say is this, as some very basic tools, when someone tells you something and you're trying to see whether or not it's truthful or not, the first thing that you can do is just repeat back to them what they said to you later in the conversation. So if somebody said, hey, these windows are going to reduce the amount of solar energy that gets into your house by 25%, some salesperson who's knocking on your door, right? 15 minutes into the conversation, you can ask them, how much will this reduce the solar energy in my house? And if they say 20%, then now you know that they're lying to you. Or if they say 40%, then you know that they're lying to you. Or if you come back and say, you said that these would reduce the amount of solar energy in my house by 35%, right? If they simply just agree with you, again, you can see that they're lying to you, right? So a lot of times, one of the best ways to tell whether a stranger is lying to you or not is by using elicitation techniques. Some of those techniques are repeating what they said back to them, falsely repeating what they said back to them, meaning they said 25%, but you're going to repeat 35%. You're looking for, again, variations in the specific detailed content. Whether we're with baseline, people that you have a baseline on, you're looking for a variance against the baseline. When you don't have a baseline, you're looking for variance against the information. But what you're definitely not doing is looking for micro expressions and micro gestures in the face.
So fresh on